Hello, everybody. On behalf of the Middle East Investor Relations Association, a warm welcome to what I consider one of the most important topics. And we're doing it at the right time of the year because we're going to be talking about the awards that MEIRA traditionally does every year. And today I'm delighted to have, you can see on camera, Amani Koreem, who's the Director at Institutional Investor. Those of you who have participated in the awards before will Right. So apologies, everybody. I don't know if I was on mute the whole time. Pedro, do you mind just telling me whether I've been on mute for the last minute or so?
Now we can hear you. You have been mute for a couple of seconds, so I think you can start over.
Okay, apologies. So presumably I got muted. So again, on behalf of MEIRA, everybody, a warm welcome. Today we're going to be talking about awards. You'll all know if you've participated before that one of our key partners is Institutional Investor, who do a buy and sell side survey every year. And I'm delighted to have Amani Koreem, Director of Institutional Investor and responsible for that survey, online with us. We should also have Sophia El Bouri, who needs no introduction, as Vice Chair of MEIRA and, of course, Head of Investor Relations at First Abu Dhabi Bank. I'm also hoping that we'll have Rayan Al-Krawi from Saudi Arabia, of course, another main board member of MEIRA, as well as chapter head in our largest market. Before I begin, I'm just going to check with Pedro again, excuse me, toing and froing a bit, to see whether what I've said is correct. Do we have both Ryan as well as Sophia online, Pedro?
No, Ryan is not online.
Okay, well, not to worry, and apologies to you, good people in the audience, for taking the time to join us. You'll see that we started a bit late, and the reason for that is we had an overwhelming number of sign-ups, but we weren't seeing all of you getting online particularly quickly. So I don't know whether today is a particularly busy day in terms of the internet, but hopefully people will continue to join, because at the end of the day, today's discussion is as much about what you want to talk about as it is us presenting to you. If I can ask Amani to take us through a presentation, really just to set out the stall for the Institutional Investor IR Awards in partnership with MEIRA, and then we'll start having a discussion. And for those of you that have just joined, this recording will be made available after the discussion. Amani, over to you, and I'm going to go off camera.
Yes, thank you very much, John. Thank you for the kind introduction and for organizing this event. It's always delightful to be partnering with MEIRA to organize these kind of events and insights that we can share here today. I hope you can see my screen okay. It's flickering on my end. I'm not sure whether it's flickering at your end, but hopefully you can see the first slide, which basically shows you a quote by Edward de Bono: "A perception is real even when it is not reality." For me, this is kind of setting the scene of this presentation today here, but also the mindset that we should have in investor relations, really staying close to the market, understanding what your investors, your brokers want, how they see you, how they see your peers, and really from that identifying what is best in class and where you can potentially improve and optimize your investor relations program and engagement, also access to C-suite, to ensure that you're actually meeting their requirements in terms of information, in terms of transparency, in terms of access to management, and all the other deliverables from a regulatory standpoint, but also the interaction that you should have with your investor community. As you may know, I'm going to move on, Pedro, and you tell me if you can see the next screen. Obviously, we are running every year our survey, which is the executive team survey for emerging EMEA and developed Europe. This is a very big survey, and it's actually gotten bigger over the years, really looking at engaging a broad buy-side and sell-side community to obtain and garner independent feedback on your investor relations activities and engagement. Now, in terms of institutional investor, I'm sure a lot of you will have come across institutional investor as a financial publication. This is really our starting point. We've been around for over 50 years and have been doing independent performance assessments and survey-based research for the last 40 years. It all started off obviously with a buy side assessing and rating and evaluating the sell side, which has very quickly become an industry benchmark to identify and really ascertain the best-in-class sell-side analysts and research providers, which was very important for the sell side and has also very quickly become a way to measure their performance, but also to become a KPI and a way to actually allocate budgets and resources towards the teams and identify in terms of their remuneration and bonus structures who is best in class in that space. And for the last 20 years, we've been doing the same really with the investor relations sphere, where we're asking buy side and sell side to assess corporates. We're seeing more and more actually corporates using the institutional investor rankings as a way to measure their performance, of course, from an external audience, but also use it as a very specific KPI to monitor and track every year how the market is perceiving and receiving the communication and engagement that they are working on strategically, but also tactically. Now, this really goes to some of the key, focus area for us as a business and as a survey provider and a research provider. One of the key elements to why we are in this place and why we are also so unique is the access that we have to the global investor community. So as our key client base, we are really meeting and servicing the demands and requirements of the global money makers and players, investment managers, asset allocators, investment banks globally. So these are the same people that we would then engage for our surveys to ensure that we're getting high quality insights and feedback from the people that are actually making the decisions. Our research methodology, which I will guide you through as well in a short while, will also show you and highlight how we actually process the data, what's the algorithm behind it, how do we vet our participants, and which companies are actually eligible to participate. The key output really in terms of the deliverables is that we're able to give you independent feedback. So this is not feedback that is based on us going out, doing our outreach on behalf of specific companies, but the feedback is purely determined and steered and really run by the engagement that you're doing with the investor community and the feedback that they're giving us off the back of that. The important thing is, of course, that when you're looking at your own perception is that you're also looking at how the investor community that you're engaging with are also seeing your peers, because that will always give you an insight about how you're positioning yourself against your peers, whether these are sector, regional peers, or even global peers. So you can actually identify what your competitive advantage is, but also identify a potential route and path to improving and optimizing what you're doing. What is really also quite unique in the survey process that we're running is that it is basically a three-way feedback loop. So everybody is really engaged in the survey process to provide feedback and insights and commentary on their counterparts. So we have obviously the buy side and sell side provide feedback on corporates, but also you as corporates have the opportunity to rank the buy side and sell side firms across various metrics, which I will also show you in a minute. Now, we have three goals, and I've already outlined them in terms of our survey process, is really to give you insights, qualitative and quantitative insights on how the buy side and sell side see you. And this is not as an overall buy side and sell side universe, but really looking at very specific demographics within the buy side and sell side. So for instance, how is your financial disclosure perceived by UK investors, for instance, of an AUM of 2 billion plus? It gives you very specific feedback on very specific groups within your engagement universe. And this makes your I guess, IR program and outreach and strategic investor relations efforts just much more targeted and focused when you know where the pain points are within your investor relations efforts. And as I mentioned earlier, we asked the buy side and sell side, and I will show you this in a second as well, to assess and rate you across various performance metrics. So there are over 20 performance metrics, and we've actually just revised them for 2023, and I will show you what we've actually changed in terms of the different voting categories. But the important thing is not only that you see how you're being perceived by the investor community, but how the deliverables are comparing to your sector peers and your regional peers as well. And the final part, which is very important, is, of course, who are you partnering with? Who are you engaging with? Who are you targeting fundamentally as part of your investor outreach? And we are able to also give you the top performing sell-side analysts, top performing research providers, top performing corporate access teams. So you also know who you need to engage with, who do you need to focus on, so they can actually deliver the kind of access that you need to the investor community that you're trying to target. Now, these are the voting categories, and this also directly feeds into the award categories that we have for MEIRA. So what you can see here, what we call sort of the executive team or individual voting categories, you see here CEO, CFO, board of directors, and investor relations officers. So the CEO and the CFO have underlying performance metrics that we ask the buy side and sell side to assess, and they rate those individual attributes from 1 to 5. This is really important because we obviously have the Grand Prix category where we award the leading CEOs and CFOs as part of the MEIRA Awards. So these CEOs and CFOs would have been assessed and rated based on these metrics that you can see here. And by the way, I would all encourage you to jot down a few questions that you have, just to make sure that we can actually address any kind of unclarities or questions that you may have throughout the presentation or at the end, whichever way you prefer. I don't mind being interrupted. Then we have the board of directors, and this is basically a new category we've introduced in 2022, and that's off the back of understanding and seeing trends in the market that are showing board of directors being a lot more increasingly engaged with the investor community. In fact, investors are handpicking, individuals from the boards that they wish to engage with directly to address very specific topics. Specifically, when we look at the ESG narrative, which is obviously an important area, a growing area, that is really under the supervision and leadership of the board of directors in terms of strategic outreach. So we're seeing that this is a growing area, and actually from last year's surveys, we have noted that the feedback and the commentary received is actually consistent with all the other voting categories. So we're seeing a great level of interest by the buy side and sell side in providing feedback on those specific in this specific voting category. Now, the underlying attributes is actually a new element for 2023. So we're really wanting to break it down and to understand specifics within the board of directors structure and operation to be able to provide feedback on that as well to the corporate community. Then we have the IRO area, and that also feeds directly into the MEIRA Awards. We have the IR program, which is also based on one of the MEIRA IR Awards. So we're looking here at specifically the financial disclosure, but also services and communication. And you can see here the underlying performance metrics that have to be all rated and assessed to determine who is best in class, who is best in class in terms of their IR program structures and activities. Then we have ESG and also the investor event, which ESG does not fall into the MEIRA award category, but it's an area that we're obviously capturing feedback on as well. Are there any questions with regards to the voting categories here? If not, then I'm just going to move over now to the methodology, and that's a really, really important part. I think it's more so the area that we garner a lot of interest in, just to understand how the process really works. Fundamentally, in terms of the target universe, as I mentioned, we are in a very unique position because of the business that we're in, the business of basically institutional investors servicing the needs and the information requirements of the global buy side and sell side. And that's the same kind of universe that we tap into when it comes to generating feedback through and for our surveys. The individuals that are participating in the survey process, they have to fulfill very specific eligibility criteria to be able to participate in the survey. They are all pre-vetted, so we look at for instance, what their coverage universe looks like for the EMEA region. They have to be either invested in the EMEA region, or they have to, as a sell-side individual or firm, have to actually produce research on the company and on the sector over the last 12 to 18 months. So this is really an important part, that we are only inviting individuals to provide feedback that are actually relevant and can provide authentic feedback and actually experiential feedback. So they have to have engaged with you to deliver that kind of insightful perception feedback that we need to help guide you in terms of your investor relations outreach. It's in terms of corporates, every single corporate is eligible who is listed on the stock exchange of the survey, of any stock exchange of the survey region that we're covering. So for emerging EMEA and for the MENA region, it's every single listed entity that are listed in the region. So you don't actually need to do anything at that point other than being a publicly listed company, and that automatically makes you eligible. The voting happens completely unprompted, which is very important and impacts the quality of the results quite significantly. So throughout the voting process, we do not give the buy side and sell side voters a list of companies or individuals to choose from. Again, it's completely unprompted. So they have to put the name down of the company they wish to go ahead and assess across all of these 20 metrics I just showed you. That's very important, because that really means the companies that stand out to them, the companies that really deliver information that is transparent, consistent, and comprehensive for them to understand the company fully, make informed investment decisions. These are the companies that really stand out. The companies that engage regularly, but also not only through the frequency of interaction, but really the quality of the engagement. So we looked at, for instance, let me just take you back. For instance, on the IR program metrics here, the business and market knowledge that you deliver as individuals as part of your engagement is hugely important, especially in the region that we're in. There's a lot of volatility, there's uncertainty. Companies need to be able to still maintain the necessary transparency and information about the company to give those investors really trust and faith in the company and the direction the leadership is taking the company. The productivity of meetings. So it's not only, again, as I mentioned, the frequency of meetings, but what is it that you're covering during those meetings? Have you answered all the questions that the investors have during the meetings? One of the key areas that actually the buy side and sell side, both of them, are really looking at is the IR credibility and authority. And this is an area we've seen actually grown in the region quite significantly, because we see a lot more heads of IR being empowered by their C-suite to speak on the company's behalf, to be an authoritative representative of the company and to be taken seriously by the market. And that credibility comes, again, through nurturing those relationships, developing trust, but also knowing what you're talking about and understanding how your company fits in within your own sector context, but also potentially the regional context and on a global context potentially too. So these are all very important areas that they look at, that they assess you in. And this is really important to really identify as part of the survey process the kind of companies that stand out. So it is very much a top of mind, but it is a top of mind that is based on the quality of your deliverables, on the quality of your engagement. So this is really an important part of the process and really important for you to understand. There is no weighting, so we don't weight on AUM size or sell side ranking, so every voter has an equal vote. The weighting is based on a purely rating based weighting, so they assess and rate each of those areas that you've seen from 1 to 5. 1 is average and 5 is excellent, and those points then get added up and divided by the total number of points allocated across the survey or across specific voting categories to then determine the final ranking and a market share score as we determine it. Now, the output is basically a perception intelligence, if you like, that is looking at your results relative to the results of your peers across all of these 20+ metrics. It's broken down by sector, it's broken down by country or by market cap, whichever sort of kind of benchmarking denomination you wish to use, you can use to be able to you really benchmark yourself and do a sort of apple-to-apple comparison, if you like, and really distill the areas and the action points that you need to take to better your IR program and improve your overall engagement. I just wanted to very quickly as well show you the voting platform, and I have to go through actually the whole presentation to get out of the screen, because I think this is really important. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah, we can, Amani.
Okay, and you can see the voting platform?
No, we've got the opening slide with your team.
Okay, well, I think I need to, and Pedro, maybe you can help me with that. I need to pick this. Can you see now the voting platform?
Yes, we can. We can.
Perfect. Okay, wonderful. Sorry about that. So what you can see here is basically what a typical buy side and sell side professional sees when they go ahead onto the platform. They've all been pre-verified. So people actually that request a ballot and want to participate in the survey, they have to actually go through a due diligence process. So we need to vet them from the outset to ensure that they meet all the necessary eligibility criteria. So a buy sider would see obviously all the areas, for the sell side research teams as well to assess. But right here at the top, and they can't miss it, is the category where we ask them to assess and rate the investor relations categories. At this point, they have to actually, as I mentioned, type in the name of the company. This is, by the way, our Latin America survey. We run those surveys globally in different regions and markets. So this is not what you would basically get in your MEIRA survey, but it's structurally exactly the same. So they put the name of the company, and then all of these performance metrics that we've basically just discussed and gone through are then here visible for them to assess. And it's very efficient. It's a very efficient process. They rate the areas from 1 to 5 here, and then they provide commentary to kind of support the rating that they have given us. So we get actually both at the same time a quantitative analysis, but also in most cases, even though none of these areas, none of these voting categories are mandatory, but we're also able to obtain qualitative feedback as well. So you can see here all the different metrics here. The only area, let me just do this, for the IR professionals as well, it's very important that they also have to name the individual. So if you're a larger team, you need to be mindful of the fact that they have to put down the name of the individuals. So for instance, as you can see here, the head of IR at Grupo Santander Mexico is Hector. So they then go ahead and select Hector, and then they rate them and then provide feedback here for Hector. And they can do this as many times as they want for the IR team, with the one limitation that they can only assign each rating only once. So only 5 gets assigned to one person, 4 points to one person, and so on and so forth. Because fundamentally, again, we want them to produce a nuanced feedback and really think about how they're actually assessing your IR engagements and efforts. The only area that is pre-populated are the names of the CEO and the names of the CFO, because obviously there's not much alternative unless they're individuals that have a dual function, then they would show up here too. But this is really important, so we don't want to use more of the investors and the brokers' time in typing the names of the CEO and CFO. And again, they have the opportunity to rate across each of those 3 metrics, from 1 to 5 for the CEO, for the CFO, and from 1 to 5 across these metrics for the CEO. Are there any questions with regards to the voting ballot?
Yeah, I hope you can all hear Amani as clearly as I can. I can certainly see your screen, Amani. I was just going to say apologies to those of you who couldn't get online. It's quite funny because, of course, we've all been living in a virtual world for so long, but we were quite happy to see the back of it in 2022. And maybe some of us have forgotten how to get back online because we're using exactly the same platforms, of course, we've been using for the last few years. But I'm not complaining because I prefer to be in person, but I'm hoping that if you missed the beginning, don't worry, because the whole thing was recorded, so you'll be able to listen back. So our apologies. Sorry, Amani.
No worries. Can I just quickly confirm that you're seeing my presentation again?
No, we've got your
I think I can't.
research.
Okay.
Amani, we have a few questions from panelists.
Yes, please. Yeah, go for it.
I've just posted it in the chat box.
Yeah, this is a good point because, as we said at the beginning, as much as we like to present, and Amani, you've done a very comprehensive job as always. This session's all about questions that you may have, all about any queries that you may have, any clarifications, as Amani suggested, that you may wish. Because Amani, excuse me, putting it this way, obviously listening to the process, there are certain steps that need to be undergone by the companies, including making sure that not just your CEO, CFO are updated if there happen to be any changes, but importantly, your whole IR team is actually where it should be in terms of the survey. And I'm sure, Amani, at some point you'll give us an indication of a timeline so that we can then plan accordingly.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure. I mean, Deborah, you mentioned that there were questions. Did you want to read them out, or shall we wait until the end?
Sure, I've just posted them in your chat box, but I can read them.
Yeah, I'm terrified of clicking on anything.
Don't worry, Amani. To be fair, Deborah, I can't see them either, so feel free to read them out if they're timely and relevant at this point.
No problem. I think they're coming from one of our panelists. So Ryan, feel free to step in as well. If you
welcome, Mr. Chairman. We missed you at the beginning. I hear you had connection difficulties, but a warm welcome. Thanks for joining us, and feel free to jump in.
Okay, so I'll continue. Go ahead, Amani.
No, please go ahead, Deborah.
Okay, so the question goes, what about the company information on your website? So people have updated information on the company management.
Yes.
Who does the input of the management of the company? And how does the company information get updated?
Yes, excellent. I think you're seeing a different screen now, I hope.
Not yet, Amani. We've got a wonderful full screen of you.
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Now
all right.
it's
Okay.
the camera.
Okay. Well, hold on. Is that showing now the right screen? It says at the top II research.
Yes, we can
Executive
see it.
team contacts.
Yes.
Ah, fantastic. Okay, I do apologize about this. I'm trying to get better as as we go through the presentation. But this is a perfect segue, actually, this question, because I just wanted to guide you through now from a corporate perspective. So we've seen how the buy side and sell side go ahead and basically assess and rate you. But you obviously, you don't have to, but it's best practice that you do, and we encourage you to participate in this process, is basically where we ask you to verify the details of the individuals on the IR team that are market facing. So everybody that basically engages with buy side and sell side regularly, and review the process and review the names and add them or delete them as your team changes fundamentally. And also, and this is what you basically, you get the link to, and I'm using again the Latin American survey as an example. So you will get a link very shortly around end of February, beginning of March time, where we'll ask you to verify your contact details, and you will be basically accessing this platform here. And there are 2 steps that you need to fulfill as part of this process. Through this platform, and it's very intuitive and self-explanatory, but I'll show you very quickly how it works. You basically go ahead and edit the information here of the individuals that you have already listed or that we have already listed for you. if they were an IRO and they're now a CEO, a CFO, you can change it here and basically save the information. And this information is really important for us to cross-reference any kind of names that are basically inputted through the survey platform and verify those names. We still do our own verification and we're still doing our own fact-checking and data updating, but it's really, really important that you also play a role in that, so we have all the right information to hand as well. So this is where you update all the company information, change your IROs, add your IROs, delete your IROs if they've left the company, and of course make sure that we have the right CEO and CFO names here. The second part to this is when we ask you to actually participate in our trends survey, where and this is when you click on this link here, and it basically takes you to the voting platform and to a survey that actually includes questions around IR budget, around the number of meetings you've had, what kind of service providers you use, how many engagements you have with the board, which markets do you target, which new markets do you target. So it basically covers a whole host of information and activities around investor relations. And as part of that process, we also ask you to rank the buy side and sell side, as I mentioned earlier. I'm going to basically share just the document now that I've pulled out. Bear with me one second. Okay, here we go. I think you can see now the survey that I'm referring to.
We can.
So here basically we ask you to complete all those kind of information. How many members are on your team? You have access, corporate access individuals, and then you also have the opportunity, and this is in PDF, so I'm just showing you the PDF version. You have here the opportunity to rank the best research providers from 1 to 4. We also ask you to rank the best corporate access teams based on various metrics, investor introduction, reverse roadshows, conferences, and so on and so forth. This feedback is really important to the sell side as well, and we give them this feedback as well, so they can also improve what they're doing as part of their interaction with you. The other element of that is also ranking the buy side, and we give you also the opportunity to rank the top 3 buy side firms across different metrics as well. Here, knowledge of sector, best engagement and long-term support, ongoing feedback, and so on and so forth. And this is again a piece that the buy side is incredibly interested in, especially the corporate access teams, as they're really looking to service you in a much more focused and targeted way as well. So basically, and I'm going to just go back to the presentation again, unless there are questions with regards to the voting platform or the other area.
I was just going to ask Amani, when is this available for us to input
exactly
to as a company?
As a company. So basically, we are starting the process end of this month, beginning of next month. So you will see an email that will come to you, which will ask you to verify your company details. So you have it here. Step 1 is verification. You need to sign up again to the platform because the passwords, they need to be refreshed every 12 months. So you need to sign up and then basically go through the verification of the individuals, add them and delete them as you see fit. The individuals that are eligible, they have to be in that role for the last 30 days before we start with the survey. So this is really important because we also only really want to be able to assess individuals that have actually, had already time to have an impact on their community. We only need 1 submission per company. So every person may get it on the team, but we only need 1 submission per company. And then we have the trends survey, which is part and parcel of that. Now, in terms of your outreach and what you could do to basically expand awareness and to increase awareness around the survey process, you will need to tell your buy side and sell side contacts that the survey results are important to you. Very often, buy siders especially, they don't know that you look at those results, you use them to measure your performance. So it's really important that you engage with them and tell them to participate in the survey. Alternatively, what we do, or in addition to 2022, we also have a data sharing agreement through which you can actually share your top buy-side and sell-side contacts with us. We only use the information for the purpose of the survey, and it's fully aligned with GDPR guidance, of course. So this is also a step that you can do to send us your lists. And I have also hyperlinked here the data sharing agreement, and I can share the presentation later on with Pedro and John, and also how we want to receive the information. Now, in terms of timelines, the survey, as I mentioned, in terms of data verification, company information verification, we will start end of this month, beginning of March, and it will go until the 11th of April. So you need to complete your part of the survey process until the 11th of April, at which point the actual buy-side and sell-side survey starts. And it goes on until the 5th of May, potentially longer, depending. We always say between 5 to 6 weeks. So we always monitor and track the survey progress, and that's why we're keeping kind of the end dates a little bit more fluid. The sector results are published in mid-September, and then, of course, the regional awards in cooperation with MEIRA, we will publish through the awards event on the 13th of November in Bahrain this year, which we're all very excited about, and on the 13th of November, as I mentioned. And the awards categories that we have for the MEIRA awards are here on the screen. So you can go over those again. We have the overall Grand Prix, which looks at the best investor relations program, really, and that really looks at the program metrics that I showed you earlier, broken down by financial disclosure and service and communication. Then we have the best CEO and best CFO. And those results are based on the, again, the 3 performance metrics, again, for each of those individual categories. And then we have the country awards. And then finally, as a new category introduced in 2022, the most improved IR program for the GCC region. And I will pause here and look forward to your questions. If you have any further questions following this presentation, please reach out to us. I'm sure you're familiar with Mariola, who is really sort of running the show on our executive team surveys. She's fantastic, and she's always able and willing to help. But I pause here and look forward to your questions.
Amani, thank you very much. That was very, very clear to me, but I have the benefit of having done this for many, many years. And what really strikes me from this presentation is that this is just a microcosm of a market ecosystem. I like the way you describe the players as buy side, sell side, and of course the issuers themselves, the corporates. And essentially, this is a self-perpetuating, reinforcing market ecosystem. So if I want to get involved, I need to make sure that my credentials are all up to date. When that, I don't know how you describe it, Amani, but what you showed, portal, when that portal is open, I need to double check that everything's up to date from my CEO, CFO, my head of IR, my IR team. And at the end of the day, you're only interested in obviously hearing from one of us. Not everybody needs to respond on behalf of the corporate, because it's only one entry per corporate. And I have a window in which to make sure that everything's up to date. I also have the opportunity to look at my own buy and sell side and give them feedback, given that I'm expecting to benchmark my own IR performance against my peers. And presumably, given what I said, if I make the effort to engage with sell side, buy side, hopefully they might reciprocate. And if I'm really proactive and tell them just how important this is to me and to my management, I might get some votes for my own particular role, if not for my C-suite, if not for my organization as a whole. And it is very much a
point, John. On that point, John, if you allow me, I wanted to ask actually on that point, because we always have in this part of the world a little bit of I don't know how to call it. We're worried about annoying people and bothering them with emails and asking for people to vote for us. What's the best practice there, Amani, John, if you may? I in the past made sure that I sent a message to my contact list, my investors, to sell-side analysts, etc., about a month before, and then a week or two before the closing of of the voting. What is best practice, and how does one do this without appearing that one has this urge for people to vote for him or for the company?
Yeah, I couldn't hear everything, but I think, Ryan, you were asking, and thank you for your question, about what the best practice is in terms of engaging the voter community. I completely hear you in terms of, some people actually go as far as, telling, and we see this only really on the sell side when they're actually, asking the voters to vote for themselves, please vote for me, vote for me. But I can, reassure you that creating awareness does not necessarily impact the quality of your vote. So it is important that you let the buy side and sell side know that the survey results are important to you, because you're using it as a way to measure your performance and use it really as an almost like an external inventory of a performance assessment. So they need to know that this is important for you, and then they, as off the back of that, they should participate. We engage our voter community twice a week, so we do the outreach anyways, but I think it's to your point, if I heard you correctly, that you also do at the beginning and towards the end reminder emails, which is really useful, again, just to encourage them to participate. That's why we've also created this banner that you should be able to see on the screen here. This is a banner that we can share with you, which serves as a reminder. You can put it in your signature, and the buy side and sell side, they are very familiar. They've been doing this for many, many, many years. We have so many legacy voters, if you like, that are part and parcel of this ecosystem. If they see the banner, they will know what they need to do, but it still helps for you to share with that. We've seen, some companies, they go through great length in terms of just giving them a highlight on what the biggest achievements they've had over the year. So as a reminder, again, having looked at the survey process, it's not, even though it's very efficient, but it also takes time, and it also, they need to invest that, and they will only vote for the people that really deliver value and have actually distinguished themselves. So, to summarize, engage with them, tell them that you're looking at the results, use the banner to create awareness, and at the same time, as I mentioned, share with us your contact details so we can make sure that people that are not on our radar, which is more unlikely, in fact, but we can still cross-reference that we can actually engage with them as well if there's certain niche institutions or so on and so forth. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think that was loud and clear. And Ryan, apologies for the lack of a good connection there. Hopefully we can hear Sophia clearly, which we could earlier. And Sophia, as a perennial winner, excuse me flattering you like that, but also being a Grand Prix winner, clearly you have a process, clearly you take this very seriously. And that's part of the explanation, other than being great at your job, that you're successful in the Institutional Investor Awards. And just picking up on Ryan's question about internal processes and about looking for that window when you need to update and make sure that you feature through the portal, what then happens during the survey period of 5 to 6 weeks that Amani just mentioned up until mid-May? What would best practice be from a perennial winner? I'm hoping Sophia heard me, by the way. Are you there, Sophia?
Sorry, John. I think Sophia got disconnected.
Oh, dear me. I tell you guys, this has been extraordinary. We got through a global pandemic without any problems. We were online constantly. And then we all got used to being in person, which we thoroughly enjoyed. And then you ask us to come back on a webinar, Amani, and none of us can do it. So my apologies to you, and my apologies to all our guests. So hopefully, Pedro, we can reconnect with Sophia, and I'll ask the question again. And Ryan, I hope that Amani answered your question as well.
She absolutely did. Thank you so much, Amani and John. And it'd be very great to hear from Sophia as a Grand Prix winner, what she did and what the process was. It would be wonderful to understand that part.
And while we're reconnecting with Sophia, Ryan, why should I be so interested in these awards or any awards when I'm super busy? I've obviously got a reporting line to worry about. I've obviously got external audiences to worry about. why should I be setting aside time and thinking, in the words of Amani, as this is a benchmarking exercise, if not a key performance indicator of what I'm doing in IR?
Look, there's, I believe that, I hope you can hear me well. I believe that there are many reasons to participate in this. And one of them, of course, being the simple one, you want to see how you are perceived by your investor community. And we do, some companies do at least, do perception studies who give you this information. Many in Saudi Arabia and the region do not do perception studies. So this is a part of what a well-oiled IR team should do, is perception studies at least once or twice a year. But winning an award just shows the best in class, and it gives the rest of the community a guideline to where they should look at, who is the best in the country and the region, someone to emulate. Winning an award, I've won a few, but have helped me personally in my career. And it is more than just winning the award that you get out of this. It's there's so many aspects of it, and it's difficult for me to put my finger on the few that I find most relevant. As I said, are the fact how they've helped me in my personal career going forward through that, and helped me with internally within the organization, how they've helped me within my helping the community in Saudi Arabia to improve, because as board member of the Saudi chapter, it's important to me that we move things along. And I think awards are also a way of celebrating. And I remember when, for the first time, a Saudi company won the Grand Prix Rajhi a couple of years ago. And it was a great achievement for a Saudi company. It was a great achievement for us, and it really showed how well we can do. It's just it's a celebration on top of everything else.
Can I perhaps add a comment to what Rayan said? And I completely actually agree with him. One of the statistics that we are able to obtain is actually the number of companies that are doing perception analysis. And to Rayan's point, it's so hugely important. And I started off my presentation in saying that perception is reality, and that companies need to stay close to their stakeholders to really be able to minimize any kind of risk, and also be able to understand and what the company story, how it's perceived, and to control that narrative, to be able to really be proactive in investor engagement and really leave the reaction or the reactive part really behind, because it's all about anticipation and predicting trends and market sentiments. But the important thing is, where perception studies in the classic sense are, more introspective, they're just looking at your company. What, excuse me, what this result gives you in terms of the survey-based results that we're conducting is the feedback from the buy side and sell side that is based on them assessing their coverage universe. So a typical buy side analyst or portfolio manager would be covering about 80 to 100 stocks. That's quite a lot. And if you've been nominated through our survey process, that's already a win, let alone being in the top 3. So it's really giving you that kind of competitive insight in how you're being perceived by your buy side and sell side stakeholders and counterparts, that really drives then, or should drive, an action from your side, where you're really looking at where do we need to optimize, how do we review our financial disclosure, what can we do to improve our ESG, because your peers may have actually done a better job in those aspects. So it's really the ability to understand what is best in class, but that is purely defined by your buy side and sell side counterparts. It's not a third party deciding you're doing a good job, you're doing a bad job, but it's really the people that are consuming your information, that you're engaging with, that are really making that decision. So you're getting that feedback directly from the horse's mouth. And this is, I think, where it becomes really quite exciting and interesting, but also strategic important. And to Diane's point, which I want to emphasize, we have our sell-siders and IROs in different markets that are celebrating the II rankings and actually making big announcements around that, because the market recognizes that as a trophy, as a win, as something that actually helps you progress in your career. But it is a stamp of approval, and it is an industry benchmark. That's why it's important to kind of strive for those as well.
Hi everyone, apologies. I think I've been.
I beg your pardon, Sophia. You could hear us, I understand, but now we can hear you. So please.
Yes, thank you. No, thank you, and thank you for the team for resolving the issues, the technology issues. But I hope you can hear me clearly now. Then very interesting presentation. Thank you, Amani. I think this is very insightful, and I'm sure a lot of the MEIRA members and IROs out there, we're looking forward for this clarification, because obviously it's very important to for everyone to clearly understand how this survey works, right, from a methodology standpoint, and also giving the tools to the IROs to really see how they can be more visible and also be, I would say, rated fairly by the investment community. And sometimes it takes really that understanding of how the mechanics work, how the methodology works, and it's obviously flagship survey, and I think globally it's the most regarded. So it's very important for each and everyone out there to know how to be visible and make sure that they are rated fairly. But just a few perhaps observations from my side, and I'm really speaking on behalf of the whole team. Obviously, we're very, very grateful at FAB to have been recognized multiple times over the years. I mean, this is really, it's always extremely humbling, to see the hard work of an entire team. And it's really not only the IR team, it's really across the board being recognized by the investment community. But, we're always very humbled. But I mean, one thing that, I need to clarify from our side as well, I'm just speaking for FAB, for us, we really see the awards as an outcome, right? And it's really never been a hard KPI per se for the team, because that would be really very difficult, I would say, to highlight. I mean, we do have ambitions, obviously, to be recognized as a top performing IR team, and the awards are definitely a very important recognition of that work. But for us, the most important thing, and it's really, again, going back to what Amani was mentioning, it's really about trying to, as much as possible, dissect the relevance as well as the impact of your IR program throughout the year. So it's really a work that needs to be done in terms of assessing what you're currently doing, what are your processes look like, and where you want to take your IR program forward. And I think this takes just a lot of hard work, really consistently throughout the year and year after year. Really, I mean, in order to build and nurture relationships, I mean, this doesn't happen during the time of the survey, right? It happens throughout the year. It happens in every single one of your interactions and engagement with your stakeholders, and it's really a long-term effort, and more importantly, an effort that needs to be taken on not only by your IR team but also your senior management team and everyone out there who actually is an ambassador for your company with the investment community. So it's really, I would say, a cohesive and a comprehensive effort from all stakeholders involved. From our side, we do track perception in various, there are various ways throughout the year where we try to analyze and understand the perception and really try to look at ways to address, whether it's a concern by an investor or a gap that we need to fill in terms of just making them understand our story better, or engaging more proactively, or putting a certain disclosure, a certain information available that investors or the sell side have been asking for, really addressing in a almost like a surgical way any concerns or any gaps that we are aware of. But the first step is really to understand what your stakeholders think about you as a company, about your IR program, about your senior management team, and And I think also the important thing here is to be very accessible. And I think that's a very important aspect. I mean, in this region, there has been a lot of progress throughout the years in order to be approachable and to answer questions and to be available for meetings. But this needs definitely to improve and to be consistent in good as well as, more importantly, in bad times as well. So I think the transparency and the level of openness and approachability is very, very important. And I think that's really critical. And I think, John, you had a question with regards to what we do at FAB during the survey period, right? I think I caught that earlier.
Yeah, that's just me being a nuisance and sort of trying to pinpoint if I was listening and thinking, how do I do this, and what do the best do? Let's hear from Sophia.
Yeah, I mean, from our side, we definitely do what Amani has said in terms of making sure that our stakeholders are aware, obviously, that the survey runs. And I think in all fairness to our friends on the sell side, I think we're being much less aggressive in terms of asking everybody to vote, etc. I mean, the sell side are much more straightforward. I mean, we do send out emails, reminders. We also put in some a two-liner in our signature as a team to remind everyone that the votes are open. But really, that's really about it. We're not too aggressive. We just want to make sure actually there is maximum participation. Frankly speaking, whether the buy side or the sell side vote for FAB or not, it doesn't matter as much as just maximizing participation, because we really want to make sure that everyone votes, and that this voting process is as comprehensive as possible in terms of contributions and participation. So that's what we try to do. But obviously, again, going back to some of the conversations we've had in the past, and I think this is, I would love, to hear also Amani's thoughts about this, because, all the IROs across the region, a lot of them do a, terrific job in terms of engagement, in terms of transparency, in terms of reporting, disclosures, etc. But throughout the years, obviously, we've seen a lot of actually the large companies or the blue chips really being recognized more than the smaller companies. So I guess it's just a generic question in terms of how do we ensure that the IR effort of across the various sizes of companies and issuers out there are recognized by the institutional investor in a way, I would say, that just emphasizes the great work that they're doing. I mean, I really like the new category last year of most improved IR program, because that definitely would help, I would say, highlight the work from a lot more, I would say, companies in terms of scope. But definitely, I mean, it would be great to hear insights in terms of how the smaller companies, which are not as visible, obviously, can make sure to secure, I would say, greater feedback from the investment committee on IR.
Yeah, thank you, Sophia, for the comments and your question. I think fundamentally, what we see across all the surveys is, of course, we do have big companies that, are just resourced much better to do much wider and more comprehensive engagement, and that's why their visibility is just a lot more stronger compared to smaller companies that may be doing a great job, but they're just not as resourced in that same way. We actually, and this is something that we can actually potentially take offline and discuss with the awards committee, but there are different ways of actually to present the data. So we are always looking at the overall top winners. We haven't actually looked at how do you break this down by market cap, for instance, which would obviously create a completely new category, and the winners would be within their category, and you can do a much easier sort of apple to apple comparison. The other thing that we're doing this year as well is as part of the trends report, which will be published later on this month, we will also give you the top 10 winners because I think it's very difficult, to see any shifts or trends or improvements or potential declines when you only really look at the top 3, which historically tend to be a lot more consistent because of the outfits that they are, because of the well-oiled machine that they are, and the structures that they have already, manifested and developed over years. So just to create a little bit more transparency as well, around the greater, number of winners, if you like, across the board that have moved up, within the, position 9 or 8 or whatever. So you have just more clarity on, where the trends are in terms of really engaging with the stakeholder universe. But this is something that we have across all the markets, what you're referring to, Sophia, but through different award structures, we can create actually visibility, for different cohorts and different groups of companies and segments within the listed entities.
Well, Amani, you and I were saying an hour ago, 15-minute presentation. Hopefully we'll get a few questions and we should be done within half an hour, but nothing could be further from the truth, particularly when you've got Rayan and Sophia online. But before we conclude, given we're coming up to an hour, I'm just going to ask Pedro and Deborah, have we missed any questions, or is there anything else that should be raised with this panel?
No further questions in the chat box, John.
Thanks a lot, Deborah. And just looking at that concluding slide, which has the timeline, if I was a relatively new IRO or IR team, given how many IPOs there are, I'd be focusing on the portal that allows me to ensure that my team is actually part of the survey. And essentially what Amani said, and we're going to reiterate this in our newsletter, is that by the end of this month's turn of the next month, there will be a period up until the 11th of April. So we're talking about a good, what's that? I can't even think. A good couple of months to think about it, let alone actually do something about it. So I would urge you, particularly if you're new, to take the process very seriously, fill in the details that are required on that portal that Amani showed with us. And then, as both Rayan spoke of in terms of celebration and Sophia in terms of process and continuous improvement, think about who you're actually addressing, be it the buy side and or the sell side. Be part of that proactive market ecosystem and let people know what you're trying to do. Now, I'm not saying that every time we score a goal, we actually win. You just need to think about poor old Liverpool. FA Cup winners last year, Carabao Cup winners last year, both cups, still competing, still trying to improve. Maybe they'll win something else this year, but it isn't just about carrying off the trophy, is it? It's about having pride in the job that you do. It's about continuous improvement. And as Sophia put it so eloquently, it's about benchmarking and being aware of where you actually sit and how you're perceived in terms of those perceptions, and then doing something about it. So you have an opportunity. 2023 is a new slate, a new year. Think about what's been presented. All this has been recorded and can be shared with you again. We'll keep highlighting these dates and the process until we complete this for 2023. And just in line with the thoughts about what Amani was saying, whether by market cap size, whether sharing more information in terms of where you actually sit in the pecking order, not just the top 3, but further down the pecking order. All that, of course, can be shared in time. And at the end of the day, I think that's the real point. Where do you actually sit? Where do you stack up? And what are you going to do about it? Whether or not you're in a shortlist this year, whether or not you win this year. And Sophia, you're far too modest, and clearly there is sense to the process, and clearly there is sense to continuous improvement. And as Rayan said, I mean, it's worth a celebration to win once, isn't it? And that's really what we're all trying to do. Otherwise, what's the point? And I know it isn't all about winning, but it'd be nice to feature. And this is really what we're talking about today. So unless there's any further comments from Amani, Sophia, or Rayan, I'd just like to, on behalf of everybody, thank the panel for an excellent discussion. And hopefully we've made sense, and hopefully we've left you thinking a little harder and wanting to try a bit harder as well. Amani, Sophia, Rayan, anything to say?
Nothing from my side. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Thank you from my side as well. Thank you for everybody's time invested in this, and also if you do have any follow-up questions, please feel free, to get in touch with us, with myself, or anybody on the team. We're also happy to sort of share some more insights on your individual performances. So just get in touch, and we'll support you throughout the process.
On behalf of MEIRA, thank you so much, Amani. Stellar job as always. And I think it's no coincidence to say again that this is the longest running, best known set of awards that I certainly know of in the world of IR. And I think the way you presented it, Amani, is incredibly helpful and hopefully inspiring to the new IROs, but also, as Sophia made very clear, all those big teams with the same goals, and they keep doing it. So why can't you? On that note, thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Pedro. Good effort. Apologies to everybody for the slight stop-start as we re-engage online.
Thank you.
And we'll try and do better next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.